essentially the thing that you're going to be arguing, right? It's the thing that you're trying to prove is true. So this is what you write in that left box. There's 2 columns, so in the left box you're writing this. It's the argument that you are trying to make. In this case, when we talk about the Odyssey, it's going to be the theme that you think you found in the story. It's going to be whatever theme you think you found in the story. It should include an author too. Which is always going to be the same, right? Like, it's always going to be the Odyssey, it's always going to be Homer, but the only thing that's going to change is the title of the story itself, right? So the claim is the argument you are trying to make. The theme that you think you found in the story includes title and author. Okay, so this is your first sentence, and this is an important sentence because this sets up the rest of your paragraph. Remember yesterday when we talked about thematic statements? Yeah, hopefully, thematic statements. Your claim statement is going to be a thematic statement. They're the same, right? So as long as you know how to write a thematic statement, your claim is already done. Okay? So there's an example in your notes. It says, in The Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum presents the idea that home is the most important place in a person's life. So that is, well, that's the claim they're making. So this is a thematic statement, right? You've got title, you've got author, you've got presents the idea that home is the topic, right? And then is the most important place in a person's life is the insight. So that is a thematic statement. A thematic statement equals a claim, which they are the same thing. Alright, is anyone still typing or can I move on? Okay, I'll give you one more second. If you want to, I mean, these are your notes, so you can add to them as much as you want. If you want to write claim equals thematic statement, you can. Or claim equals theme statement, that's fine too. Okay. Alright, if I go too fast, you can always go back to the daily slides and get this to me. Alright, context. Context. This one is not in the CER, right? Because the CER just skips right to evidence. Yeah? But since we're not in science, right, and we are working with stories, not everybody has read every single story before, right? So when you're writing your paragraph, I want you to pretend like the person reading your paragraph has never read the story before. So they need some context, right, in order to understand your quote. So context is just background information telling the reader what he or she needs to know to understand your quote. Okay, this is what you type in that left box. Provide background information telling the reader what they, he, she needs to know to understand the quote. So this is like a mini summary of the story. Remember we wrote really long summaries a while ago? You don't have to write really long summaries for this one. You're just summing up the story in like 1 or 2 sentences. Okay, that's context. You provide background information telling the reader what they need to know to understand the quote. Reads like a mini summary before your quote. Okay, so you can see the example in the right table, but in the right column. But if you've never seen The Wizard of Oz before, we have to provide enough information for you to at least understand the quote. So it says, throughout the story, Dorothy, the main character, dislikes the idea of home and has her wish granted when a tornado picks her up and brings her to a foreign land. Right? That's enough information. It's a very short summary of the plot of The Wizard of Oz.
Very.
But it's enough information in order to understand the quote. If we're just talking about the idea of being home, then that's all you need to talk about, right? For context, you're going to provide background information telling the reader what they need to know to understand the quote. Reads like a mini summary before your quote. Right? And here's the thing. I don't want you to describe the whole Odyssey. Like, I don't want you to go from the beginning and say, like, Odysseus fought in the Trojan War, and then he did this, and then he did this. Way too much information, right? You can just start with whatever story we're on. If we're on Argus, then you're going to say, Odysseus has a dog, who he hasn't seen for 20 years, right? That's enough for you to start your summary. Yes?
Idea, just copy the link to the PDF.
You're like, please refer to this.
Please refer that from
Please
the.
read the story on your own. In theory, that would be a good idea, but for this, you're going to write at least a couple of sentences. Okay? And that's enough. I'm not asking you to write, 10, 12 sentences. I'm just asking you to write 1 or 2.
Here's a PDF.
Alright? The next one is the same in the CER, right? Evidence or quote. It's the same, right? A CER is evidence. A quote is also evidence. So the E is the same if you've been working with CERs. This is provide a quote that proves your claim. Provide the citation for the quote. So you literally...
That's simple enough.
You literally can, quite literally copy and paste from the books. Copy and paste from the PDF.
I bet you have to give credit.
Correct. So you need quotation marks, which hopefully is very obvious, and you need a citation.
Which we should already know.
So provide a quote that proves your claim. Provide a citation for that quote. And for citation, I'm not too concerned that you know it perfectly in MLA format. As long as you try your best is all that matters to me. So if you do author's last name, which is Homer, he only has one name, and then if you do line number, because we don't really have page numbers in the Odyssey, right? It's a poem. So if you do author's last name and line number, that works for me. Okay. Although, however, I will say, if you are using these papers for your quote, they don't have line numbers, so you could skip it, and I would be fine with that too. Okay? So, example. While away, Dorothy expresses how important home is when she explains that there's no place like home, which is probably the most famous quote from the movie. While away, Dorothy expresses how important home is when she explains that there's no place like home. Okay, this one's super easy. Alright, the next one is, we call it comment in English, but you may have heard this as reasoning, okay, in the CER. So it's the same thing. We just give it a different name. We're calling it a comment instead of calling it reasoning.
Oh, there's no differences.
There's really no difference. So, CCERC would not sound as good.
Yeah.
So we call it a comment. Basically, you are providing your reasoning or your rationale for why you picked that quote, how that quote supported your main sentence. So include further points to explain how your quote supports your claim. You're like defending yourself, essentially. So you're not on trial for anything. You say, hey, this was my theme that I saw in the story. This is a quote that I thought matched that theme. Here's my reasoning why. Here's my reasoning why I picked it. Without saying the words, here's the reason why I picked it, right? So in your own notes, if you want to write comment dash reasoning, or if you want to put comment dash R, if like the CER helps you remember, then that's totally fine. That's up to you. When I'm explaining why I picked that quote from The Wizard of Oz, I would say, although Dorothy hates home in the beginning, being so far away from it makes Dorothy appreciate the time and effort that her family puts into loving her. Right? So in the beginning, she wants to escape home. But after she goes through everything, she realizes and says, there's no place like home. So I essentially picked the quote where she changes her mother. And then I explained, although Dorothy hits home in the beginning, being so far away makes her appreciate the time and effort that her family puts into loving her. Okay, so this is our reason. This is the reason why we did this book. Okay, and then the last one, so this is also not in the CER, so this one is new, it's an add-on, right? And this one seems a little redundant, but we always have to close things out nicely, right? So the last one is conclude or conclusion. Conclude or conclusion.
Here's a good question. If you were to give all 5 letters a given name, what would you do? What would you name them?
All 5 letters?
Yeah, you need 4 names that start with C and 1 that starts with E.
That would be hard. I don't think I can do it.
I'm gonna pick the E as Eli instead of Mike.
Alright, so conclusion is you're just rephrasing your claim. So you're restating your first sentence, except you're not copying and pasting your first sentence, you're rewording it. And this time you don't have to include the title and author. So you don't have to say, in the Lotus Eaters from the Odyssey by Homer. You can skip that whole part, and you're just rephrasing your claim. Rewording your claim, essentially. So rephrase the claim or reword the claim that you made in your first sentence. Don't include title and author this time. And I know it seems redundant, but you want to close things up nicely, right? You want your paragraph to feel like it has an end to it, right? Like, I'm done talking now. That's all I'm going to say about this theme.
Well, think about it.
I don't think about it.
I got Eli. I think 2 of my C's, 1 that's good.
You could be.
No, I got 3 C's so far. I got Chad, Cadence, and Core.
You got names, your actual names. Got it. So the example for conclude is the story demonstrates the importance of home and the happiness that home should bring. So it's totally different than our claim statement, but it's still drives the point home, right? It sounds like a nice close. The story demonstrates the importance of being home and the happiness that home should bring, right? They were tying it with a bow. It's very nice. You can clearly tell that this is my last sentence. I'm going to be done now. Okay? Alright, so now what you can do is after, and I mean really it's kind of up to you. I'm okay with you using the boxes for a while. But eventually I want you to be able to put this into one paragraph, right? Copy and paste it into one paragraph without the boxes. So all you need to do for that is you're just going to take each sentence and you're going to copy and paste it so that it looks like a paragraph, right? So this would be yellow, because that's our claim, right? This one would be green, because that's our context. Right, and so once you get to this step, it shouldn't be that much work, right? You're just copying and pasting it outside of the boxes. This one should be blue. That's our evidence. Okay. This one should be purple because this is our comment or reasoning why we picked it.
I got the 4th C. I'm going to put the 4th C as car.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Well, listen, whatever helps you remember. Alright, and then conclusion, copy, and paste. So now, this is a full paragraph, right? Even though it didn't look like a full paragraph in the beginning, right? It is a full paragraph now. When you do this, one box at a time, it doesn't feel like you're doing too much work. But then, when you put it all together, You're like, oh, I did do a lot of work. Okay? Alright, so let's review. Okay, your first theme is claim, that's your thematic statement. You're claiming that you saw this theme in the Odyssey. Your second C is context. You're providing a little bit of background information in order to understand the quote. Okay, not the whole Odyssey, just whatever background information you need. Then E is direct quote or evidence. It's something that you highlighted in a sheet that looks like this, right? Comment is the explanation of how your evidence connects to a theme, right? Why did you pick that quote? And then lastly, conclusion is your claim statement rephrased, and then you may even want to connect it to like the world in general, right? The bigger picture. Okay? So what you're going to do is similar to the other day. I'm going to give you a copy of Argus. Everybody remembers Argus from yesterday? Yeah, what you were here yesterday? You were here yesterday. For a little bit, didn't you? Alright, so you can reread it if you need to. It's really short, actually. So Argus is who? Who's Argus?
The dog.
The dog, good. And he's Odysseus' dog, and he's about 20 years old now. He hasn't seen Odysseus since he left. Okay, and then he sees Odysseus come back, but Odysseus is in disguise, right? He looks like an old man. He doesn't look like himself. So, what's Argus's reaction when he sees Odysseus? Yeah, he tries to wag his tail, his ears are all, like, lying down. He's like, oh, I think that's you, right? Which is interesting, because he can't tell by looks. He can tell by hearing his voice, and probably even smelling him, because dogs have a good sense of smell. Okay, so he knows Odysseus is getting all excited, and then does Odysseus go and pet him? No. Why?
It'd break his disguise.
Good, perfect. It would break his disguise. He doesn't want to get caught, right? So he's crying. He's got one tear down his cheek, right? Because he's very sad that he can't say anything to his dying dog. And then what happens to poor Argus at the end? He dies without any final goodbyes.
The dog dies.
He dies. It's very sad. So I'm going to give you a copy of Argus. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at this list of terms.
Pull it off.
Sorry, hold on. Okay, look at the list of topics, right? I want you to decide to yourself what topics are in this story. And then once you've decided what topics are in this story, I want you to highlight where. Like, where are these topics indirectly stated in the story? So you're highlighting evidence. Or underlining. Underlining is fine. So you're listing what topics out of all these are in the story, and you're underlining where those topics are happening. Question?
I was just going to say one of them.
Oh, which one do you see in the story?
Grief.
Yes.
Lots and lots of it. Because, well, for example,
Here you go, pass this back.
we see the Cyclops dying, which was apparently Poseidon's son.
Correct.
So he grieved by trying to kill a few mortals.
Probably one of my favorite names is Chuck. Another scene.
Isn't that a nickname for another name?
I think the thematic statement, I think I'm gonna name it Thomas Salad.
There you go. Okay, so you're writing on the right. Oh goodness, I guess the mask is done. You're writing on the right. What theme you think you see? Okay. Or what topic you think you see, and on the left you're underlining where you see that topic happening.
Oh, where? Where is?
Yeah, because it's indirect, right? They don't say here's some grief, here's some love, right? It's all indirect.
Yeah, look at that purple grape.
Well, this isn't long.
Those purple grubby hands. No, he's more of a raisin because look at his chin. No, that's a 12-line butt chin.
Well, of course.
And there it is. Multiply that by 2, add 1, 69.
You got more topics.
I did add some more.
Are you gonna add any more?
It's possible, yeah.
I've already
No, man.
found love. Keeper game. Is this someone that I'm supposed to be?
Dropping the ball.
J.A. body. I've never seen it. That green peppers. I've never seen Michael Jordan. Hulk is a green ass pepper.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Are you living the dream or dreaming about living?
Both.
Make the ground shake there, Josh.
I'll kick.
You're what?
I'll kick you.
You're gonna kick me
I will.
with your teens?
With my boots.
Real boots.
They are.
Those are like dollar store boots.
I got them at Famous Footwear for almost $100.
Yeah, that's like the dollar store version.